our team could hold us.
But Ford Fairmont can.
Fairmont has the most room for the money of any car or wagon.
Super!
Good evening. The governor of Pennsylvania, Richard Thornburgh, says tonight he still feels no general evacuation is necessary at this time as a result of the accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear generating station. United Airlines says its mechanics have gone ahead with their threatened strike and that all of the airline's flights are now canceled at least until April 9th. And the Teamsters Union and the trucking industry are nearing final agreement tonight on their new contract. We'll have more on those stories at 11.
Channel 2, Southern California.
Dallas will not be presented this evening so that we may bring you the following CBS News special report. Dallas will return next week at its regular time.
The risk involved is that the gas would expand, prevent cooling of the core, that we would suffer additional core damage, and with the ultimate risk of a meltdown.
That risk is real.
The risk, depending on the manner in which you figure out to cope with this problem, could be real. If we determine that it is, we'd recommend a precautionary evacuation.
So we are faced with the remote but very real possibility of a nuclear meltdown at the 3 Mile Island atomic power plant. The danger faced by man for tampering with natural forces, a theme familiar from the myth of Prometheus to the story of Frankenstein, move closer to fact from fancy through the day.
CBS reports danger at 3 Mile Island, the nuclear accident, and what it means.
Welcome to the cold and flu season. You felt a cold or flu coming on this morning. Now you're really achy and feverish. Take Bayer aspirin. For aches and fever, what's in Bayer is what doctors recommend most. 100% pure aspirin, nothing more. That's what's in Bayer aspirin. And millions have used Bayer with no stomach upset. So remember, rest, fluids, and Bayer aspirin. For aches and fever, what's in Bayer is what doctors recommend most.
Thursday the 4th, 7:30 a.m. Man in mirror looks old. Gray hair's got to go. Used Grecian formula for the first time. Looks like water, no mess. Wednesday the 10th, gray hair slowly disappearing. Tuesday the 16th, more gray gone, nobody noticing. Monday the 22nd, hair looks perfectly natural, feels healthy too. Wife likes touch of gray I left around the sides. Boss says I look great, asks if I've lost weight. Fact, without all that gray, I look like myself again. Grecian formula, liquid and cream.
When the danger to public safety became apparent today, Pennsylvania Governor Dick Thornburgh urged the evacuation of pregnant women and young children among the 20,000 residents who live within 5 miles of 3 Mile Island, and another 300,000 residents, those living within a 10-mile radius, were told to stay indoors until further notice. Here is the peril they're faced with. The situation inside the nuclear reactor is stable for the moment, but fraught with danger. One helpful element, the longer the catastrophe is delayed, the less likely it may be to occur at all. Some of the 177 uranium fuel rods in the core are damaged, perhaps a quarter of the core. Temperature is far higher than normal for a shutdown reactor, up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. As long as the rods remain immersed in cooling water, the situation is under control. But at the top of the reactor vessel, a bubble has formed. Radioactive gas. The only vent is manually operated. Certain death for anyone who tried to open it. The bubble is still well clear of the fuel rods, but to cool the reactor down, engineers must reduce the pressure. Inevitably, as the pressure drops, the bubble must expand. The hope is to release the bubble through the cooling system. But if it is not released, it can block the flow of cooling water and uncover the tops of the fuel rods. That's when the rods, deprived of coolant, could overheat and rupture or melt down. If they're still hot enough, they could melt right through the floor of the reactor vessel. If enough hot nuclear fluid suddenly hit the water in the containment building, there could be a sudden, violent steam explosion, perhaps violent enough to blow out the walls of the building, scattering radioactive debris into the environment. Federal officials say such a catastrophic explosion is still highly unlikely, but not impossible. Still, the reactor is cooling down, and the cooler it becomes, the less likely those rods are to melt their way through the reactor vessel. and create that disastrous explosion into the air and water around 3 Mile Island. But our story, of course, also involves the people around Harrisburg, and here with that story is Richard Wagner.
Evacuation, when it came today, came calmly and without panic. Pregnant women and preschool children living within 5 miles of the crippled reactor were urged to leave their homes and to stay away until the situation is resolved. Those with no place to go were invited to the Hershey Park Arena near Harrisburg, where authorities have food and medical supplies to take care of the needs of 10,000 people. Some 20,000 people live in the evacuation area, but only a handful of the reported thousands of evacuees has come to Hershey, as most apparently are staying with friends and relatives. Those that came here said there was no panic in their communities, but a great deal of skepticism. They said accurate information was virtually impossible to obtain from local officials, and what they did find out was usually incomplete.
Do you think there's more of a danger than you're being told, or?
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, why would they ask us to evacuate?
Do you think people are giving you the straight story?
No. If it's serious, they're not truthfully going to come out and tell you because they'll start a panic. You know? So I think they're just slowly, I think they tell you what they want you to know.
23 schools within 5 miles of the damaged reactor were closed indefinitely today. In Middletown, a community of some 11,000 people, 3 miles from the nuclear plant, businesses closed as shopkeepers left town. So many people left Middletown today, police officials have imposed a 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew here to forestall the possibility of looting. Steve Hawk moved his family from Middletown today, taking his wife Cheryl and children Lisa and Stevie to their grandparents until it's safe to return.
We're concerned because of the age of my son and my daughter because they gave the warning for preschool children and pregnant women. Thank God I'm not, but he is only 2. And you don't want to take a chance when they're this little or something that can endanger them, their life.
Older residents of Middletown are going as well, many angry at the way this situation has been handled by the authorities.
When I found out about this thing here, I told my wife to take cover. The local officials didn't seem to recognize the hazard. My kids, they know me, and so they're all going to go. They're going to leave the area for the next 3 days anyhow. We intend to go to Maryland because obviously there's something wrong out here.
Talking to people who have had to leave their homes with no real idea of when they'll be able to return, you come away with 2 impressions of these victims of the nuclear age. They're bewildered and they're angry. Bewildered because they didn't think it could happen, or at least didn't think it could happen to them. And angry because they feel they were not told beforehand what could happen. And after the unthinkable did occur, they feel they were not told the truth. Richard Wagner, CBS News, Harrisburg.